Thank you for joining us this morning. On behalf of the members of the EAGI Standing Committee, I would like to welcome Governor Torres and Lieutenant Governor Palacios' representative, Mr. Kevin Bautista, the appointees, Mr. Tomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tibotet, and Mr. Barry C. Tobis, elected officials, dignitaries, and members of the general public. Before we proceed forward with this public hearing, let me first introduce the members of this standing committee. To my right side of the aisle is the floor leader of the Senate, Senator Vinny Sablan from the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan. And next to him is Senator Carl Tim Neighbors from the 2nd Senatorial District, Tinian. And to my left side of the aisle is the Vice President of the Senate, Senator Justo Kiluga from the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan. And I'm the chairman of this committee, Senator Francisco Q. Cruz from the 2nd Senatorial District, Tinian. I would like also to announce a couple of things in the interest of informational purposes regarding code of conduct during this public hearing. Today, the members of this committee are conducting a public hearing on the reappointments of Mr. Tomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tibotet, and Mr. Barry C. Tobis to serve as a members of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. The public will be invited to make comments as to whether you support or oppose the appointees before us this morning. We value your input. However, any comments beyond the facts of the appointee or comments that are not directly related with this public hearing will not be entertained, and such comment will be removed from the record. At the same time, please observe minimal noises in disrupting this hearing process, and please turn your electronic to a silent mode. Thank you. Let us now begin. This public hearing is now in session. Today is September 29, 2021, at approximately 9:40 in the morning here in the Senate Chamber, Capitol Saipan. This is a public hearing regarding the reappointment by Governor Roque D. Torres and Lieutenant Governor Arnold Palacios to serve as the members of the Commonwealth Ports Authority pursuant to 2 CMC, subsection 2123. Jolene B. Duenas Tagobel will be our clerk for this hearing. Mr. Ben Santos, assisted by the House Sergeant at Arms. Mr. Tuwai will be our Sergeant at Arms, and Mr. Joe Mumodis will be our legal counsel and will serve accordingly. And for the record, Mr. Tomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, and Mr. Ramon A. Tibotet will be representing the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan, while Mr. Barry C. Tobis will be representing the 1st Senatorial District, Rhoda. At this time, I would like to ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Senator Francisco P. Cruz.
Here.
Senator Victor B. Hoppe. Senator Carl R. T. Neighbors.
Present.
Senator Justo S. Kiluga. Senator Vinny Sablan.
Again.
Mr. Chairman, 4 members are present, 1 member is absent.
With 4 members present, we have the necessary number to proceed with this public hearing. However, the Vice Chairman of this committee, Senator Victor B. Hoppe, is excused. At this time, do I hear a motion to adopt our agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer a motion to adopt today's agenda.
There's a motion and was seconded. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. At this time, I'd like to ask Sergeant Arnold to please escort all the appointees into the chamber. Before I recommend each of the appointees to present testimony, good morning again, uh, it requires again another, sorry, so to administer the oath by the clerk. So I ask that please, uh, all of you rise so that the clerk can administer the oath. My apology. Early morning. Sarge, can you also escort Mr. And before you may take a seat, I apologize. Let the governor's representative first introduce each of the members, and then we will recognize the members. And before you proceed, sir, please stay union for a record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aperitivo, good morning. Good morning to this committee and in this chamber. Good morning, Chairman Cruz, the honorable members of this committee, Senator King Neighbors, Senator Splan, Senator Kittagua, and the OB staff. For the record, my name is Kevin Bautista, Press Secretary for the Office of the Governor. On behalf of Governor Ralph de Leon Vera Torres, I thank you for the opportunity to come and testify before you today. Once again, I'm here to introduce the Governor's nominees for the Commonwealth Ports Authority, Mr. Thomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tepetep, and Mr. Barry C. Togas. A former senator and speaker in our legislature, as well as an accomplished businessman in our community, Mr. Villagomez has served admirably at CPA for a number of years. An educator at heart, Mr. Diaz has served at PSS and NMC, and in a number of areas around our islands, and has demonstrated a history of volunteerism on several boards and committees. A former representative himself and one of the most notable sports leaders in our community, Mr. Tepetep remains an active member of our community, engaging in a number of areas that enhance our image as an island community. And representing the island of Rota, Mr. Togas has served the CPA board honorably, enhancing our connection to Rota, as well as the ports and facilities on the island of Rota. These individuals have admirably served our CPA for a number of years and have accomplished a great deal during their terms of service. This includes, among a number of accomplishments, and this is not an exhaustive list, the divert airfield on Tinian, the ongoing successful COVID-19 protective measures at the border that continues to keep the Commonwealth among the safest in the world, as well as the various improvements to the ports and the facilities across our Commonwealth. Given their experience, temperament, good judgment, and several notable accomplishments that I haven't even mentioned, as board members, Mr. Thomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tepetep, and Mr. Barry C. Togas will work diligently to continue their work and to uphold the mission of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. Governor Torres places his full trust and confidence in these individuals as members of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. I know they stand ready to answer your questions and present their plans for the future, as well as report on some of the work they've done as well during their tenure. Their experience, leadership qualities, and their professionalism will serve them well in this important body, and we ask for your expeditious approval. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Senators, for the opportunity to introduce them to this august body, and we thank everyone here for coming here today. Thank you, Mr. Dusmastin. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Batista. And at this time, I'd like to again ask all the reappointees to please rise so that the clerk can administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand. Mr. Tomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tepetep, Mr. Barry C. Togas, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. At this time, I know all of you submitted the required document by this body, but if you have anything else that you wish to share, you're welcome to share with the committee this morning. I will begin starting from my left side. I'll start from Mr. Tepetep. Anything that you wish to share with this committee in addition to the required document you submitted to the committee? You may proceed, but please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. did submit to you. Sorry about
Apologies, the Senate side is a little bit high-tech system, that's why we're having this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just mostly, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. I did provide you a prepared statement, and I also provided you an attachment to it. And for the record, I guess I would like to read it for at least our public viewing. And for the record, Afaditero and Mr. Chairman, and to your distinguished members, notwithstanding recent and ongoing privileges, there were 14 concerns raised during my initial nomination process in May 2019 by way of your Standing Committee Report 2111. Commonwealth Ports Authority's public records will provide more comprehensive explanation of those and any other specific matters as may be requested. The following are three perspectives I consider elevated. First, from your Standing Committee Report 2111, Section 2D 3A. Second, the legislative action in 2016 on Public Law 1962. And lastly, CPA Board adopted self-care leave. Number one, on your committee report, Roman numeral number 7. Inter-island airfare to Guam and Rota is high compared to flights between mainland in the United States, and to look into incentive to operate to a lower fare. CPA has no authority to set airfare rates. The CPA Board, however, adopted an air carrier incentive program to provide discounts on fees in order to promote competition, attract new air carriers, and increase passenger services at her airports. A part of the incentive program allows for discounts to be given to underserved destinations such as Pilian and Rota, and the purpose for additional flights for existing air carriers and or new air carriers. Furthermore, due to COVID-19 pandemic, the CPA Board approved a tenant relief program. This program has provided all airlines discounts on aviation fees ranging from 50 to 100%. The tenant relief program is approved until December of this year. Secondly, Public Law 1962. The law's intent was to lower the cost of commodities on Tinian and Rota by waiving the inter-island wharfage fees on cargoes assessed by CPA. It is unclear whether the legislative intent was realized. Based on data received from Department of Commerce in October 2019, the Consumer Price Index, which measures the average change in price of commodities over time, appears inconclusive with or without the law. The price of commodities on Rota and Tinian has either remained the same or have since increased. The only conclusive effect of Public Law 1962 has had is to hamper CPA's ability to carry on the business of improving our seaports. Since its inception, CPA has waived over $1 million with an average of over $180,000 per year. As such, perhaps a joint effort to further clarify its noteworthy intent may be in order. Lastly, CPA employees self-care leave. Our board recently approved this policy. Like you, CPA is really concerned of its unnatural attrition, the effectiveness, and most importantly, the well-being of CPA's hardworking family. We emphasize the prevention and management of mental distress and fostering a culture of inclusion and mental health awareness. This policy is presently going through public consideration. In closing, as you are aware, the board of directors meet in an open public forum on a monthly basis. This includes special and/or extraordinary meetings as need dictates. 4 committees are established, namely Finance, Personnel, Airport, and Seaport. In spite of the integral roles of Finance, Seaport, and Personnel committees, I have provided this body the latest Airport Facilities Committee report for your purview, and perhaps a takeoff for discussion. CPA must remain focused on her missions and fiduciary responsibilities. Our legislative bodies are an essential part of CPA, just as our partners in the private and public sectors. We must collectively uphold and nourish our legal and ethical trust for CNMI to flourish. I am humbled to personally inform your committee that I have graciously accepted our Honorable Governor Rob D.O.G. Torres and our esteemed Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios of my reappointment to serve on the board of directors of CPA. I am now at your mercy for any questions, considerations, recommendations, and hopefully your favorable blessing. Thank you. My name is Ramon Tabotet.
Thank you, Mr. Tabotet. This time I have to recognize Mr. Diaz, or Barry right there. I apologize. You know, sometimes when you're not right in the spotlight, cannot even recognize where you are. Recognize from Rhoda, Barry Thomas.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. Sergeant Alarms relocated me. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and esteemed members of this august body. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. I have accepted the nomination of the Honorable Ralph Delongero Torres and Lieutenant Governor Arnold I. Palacios to continue serving the CPA Board of Directors in my capacity, representing the island of Rhoda, and most importantly, the entire Commonwealth. I'm not going to go much in detail with respect to the listed accomplishments that my good colleague, Ramon Tabotet, who I befriend the most out of the 7 board members, because with all the projects that we, as chairman of the Airport Facilities Committee, that my committee works on, we are also at the mercy of the finance chair to be able to secure the necessary funding that we will achieve our priority new projects at the airport facilities. For the record, my name is Barry Q. Torres, and I have served the Commonwealth Ports Authority Board of Directors for several years now. And I appreciate the honor of appearing before you to answer questions that the committee may have with regards to um, the activities and the programs and projects and the priorities of the airport facilities, as well as the seaport facilities and the Commonwealth Ports Authority in general. I understand that my good colleague has submitted a copy of the latest Airport Facilities Committee report to you, Mr. Chairman, for your perusal. That latest report we have adopted in the most recent Board of Directors meeting. And to add on to one of the things that we consider priority that we are looking at is we understand the entire Commonwealth with respect to the public sector and the private sector are suffering now with the impact of this COVID-19 that we are facing and struggling to combat. One of the things that we are looking at in this afternoon's special board meeting is to address the request of our concessionaires at both the airports and the seaport facilities. My good colleague Tabitha mentioned the tariff reliefs that we have adopted. Those are for the airport operators, aviation side. This afternoon, we are going to act on the request for the concessionaires, the renters, and the leasers of properties at the airport because the program expired on September 30. So they have all requested for further assistance with regards to waivers of tariffs to assist them. It is in our agenda for today's board meeting. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to add any more additional details to redundantly list. Thank you so much, and I'm ready to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning. Good morning to members of this distinguished body, my colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Ports Authority for the past 4 years. In view of the fact, I am here today to accept the renomination appointment from the Governor and the Lieutenant Governor to continue to serve as a member of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. I am ready, secured, as well as humble to continue to serve, to secure the way, the functions, and the mandates of the Board of Directors of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. In closing, I would like to ask for your favorable decision for me to continue to serve for the best interest and benefit of the Northern Marianas government as well as the community. With that, Chairman, thank you. My name is Joseph Mendiola Diaz. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Now I would like to recognize Mr. Villagomez.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My name is Thomas P. Villagomez. I've been renominated by the Governor, Governor Torres, and the Lieutenant Governor Montalvosis. I'm here to accept that nomination, and my position is now under your court. Before I proceed further, I'd just like to make a comment that, these three gentlemen, three board member, they're part of the, chairmanship. They hold the chairmanship in the committee, and I hope that, they do get their support from you. And, they're vital to the operation of the Senate, the Commonwealth Ports Authority. I am in support of their confirmation, and, they've been a hardworking committee chair. I'm a member of the CPA board, and I'm happy to be working with the existing members. Now I'm in front of you guys, and it's your call. I'm still ready to help out, and when I get confirmed, I'm more than happy again to be part of the Commonwealth Ports Authority's board of directors. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Villagomez. Again, before I recognize the members of the general public, I would like to acknowledge those entities that are invited to participate. But before I call the names, Sarge, is that mic working? So can I ask Mr. Tubicab if you can move back so that the individuals that are going to testify will use your seat for that? Are you comfortable to sit right next to? If no objection from the member?
No objections.
Okay, you can sit. I don't want you to keep moving on until you change your mind to. At this time, I would like to recognize the Executive Director of the CPA Port Authority of the Commonwealth, Mr. Chris Tenorio.
Good morning, Chairman and members of this body. My name is Chris Tenorio, and I'm the Executive Director for the Commonwealth Ports Authority. Havadi and Tiro, members of the Senate, I come before you in support of the appointment of Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tebutet, Mr. Tomas A. Villagomez, Mr. Barry C. Tovis to the Commonwealth Ports Authority Boards of Directors. These incumbent board members have been very instrumental in carrying out CP's mission statement to develop air and sea navigation to and from the Sinamay to its fullest potential. I have observed these members to be well studied, carefully prepared, and always thoughtful in deliberation. In addition, their vital role as policymakers has protected the welfare of CP personnel during this difficult economic times. It is clear to me that these members are not afraid to make bold and obtainable decisions when the need arises. I believe these members have shown that they have the skill required to effectively lead CPA and to fulfill its mission statement. The reinstatement of this role as CPA board members will ensure that CPA's goals are met. Your honorable support to the appointment of the CPA board members present before you is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Members of the Board of Directors, the sitting member, anyone wishes to come forward and testify?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. For the record, my name is Roman D. Tudela. and I am currently as Vice Chairman of the CPA Board of Directors. I'll just make it short, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm here to say that I wholeheartedly support this great gentleman, the nominees, to continue to serve as board members for CPA. With the years I have worked with them, they demonstrated professionalism. They are hardworking gentlemen. And having said that, Mr. Chairman and members, I wish to ask for your support and expedient confirmation. As you all know, by October 7, their membership expires and the CPA board would be left with less quorum. So with this, I ask for your support to expedite the confirmation. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vice Chair Padilla. Any other member of the Board of Directors?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the Executive Appointment and Governmental Investigation, my name is Pete Regis, and I'm here today to express my full support for the governor's and lieutenant governor's nomination of 4 of our expiring members of the CPA Board of Directors, namely Director Tom Villagomez, Director Joa Diaz, Director Ray Tebutep, and Director Barry Tovis. All 4 have appeared before your committee in the past and today. And I've heard testimonies of their qualifications and ability to serve as members of the Commonwealth Ports Authority Board of Directors. So I will not waste your time going over it again. You have that on record. Instead, I will state for the record that this current board is factually the most challenged board of directors because we survived the massive destruction of the most devastating, consecutive, unwelcome visit of typhoons that hit our Commonwealth. But we also witnessed the due diligence of our management staff who immediately implemented the work needed to bring our operation back into normalcy. The unexpected appearance of the military use of Tinian and part of Saipan for divert airfield. And I wish to say that we sincerely appreciate working with the Tinian Legislative Delegation and the Mayor's Office and teaming up with the Governor's staff to come up ahead on the final agreement with the military. And most recently, the global threat of the most damaging pandemic in recent history caused by COVID-19 and the succeeding similar and even greater threat of most harmful viruses, CPA board and its management staff meet the challenge and continue to survive and are still moving forward in its effort to maintain the safety of our economic gateway through its airport and seaports operations. Working together with the leadership of our chairperson, Ms. Kimberly Hines, and the boards, and the involvement of the Commonwealth leaderships, we will weather all the obstacles we face and challenge the recovery of our economy. With this, I humbly ask your committee to approve the nomination of our 4 distinguished board members and seek your recommendation to the full Senate for their confirmation at the earliest convenience. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Director Regis. At this time,
Hafade dan Tiro, buenos días, señor Chairman, dan miembro ni na comité. Naunu si Edward Mendiola, the Gogo Deputy Director Commonwealth Authority. Kaya gini pago para bayar suporta in nominación 4 na señor para ACPA Board of Directors. Era si señor Tomás Belo Gómez, si señor Barry Tovis, si señor Ramon Tebetet, dan si señor José Díaz. 4 na señor representi magugur importante na posisyon ng board. Si señor Barry Tovis, guida chairman ng Airport Facilities na komite. Si señor Ramon Tebetet, guida chairman ng Financial na komite. Si señor José Díaz, guida chairman ng Personal na komite. Dan si Tomás Belo Gómez, guida secretary ng board. Manhong itu na importante na usaha continuidad y tetuniya para macumplir el plano niha. Pues por con respeto, jugador y su votación medio para una prueba y 4 na señor, yo continúa el servicio niha y Commonwealth Authority Board of Directors. Si Dios más.
Director Mendola. This time, before I open the floor for the members of the general public that are in the gallery that wishes to come forward to deliver testimony, again, I would like to remind everyone that any comments that is raised that are not directly related with this public hearing will not be entertained, and such comment will be removed from the record. At this time, I open the floor for the members of the general public that wishes to come forward to deliver testimony. And before you proceed with your testimony, please state your name for the record. Public comment is now open. Anyone in the gallery or outside the gallery?
Tiro, Afadel, Ngaluk, Chairman Committee, me yami tiuma mayil, Shelan, lal committee yer. Itoto vi waranga, bangangamong yung ngoloteren, yang governor reappoint lir, mal kafaman, ngare Mr. Joseph Diaz, Mr. Tomas Gomez, Mr. Raymond Tabutap, Mr. Barry Tovis, Warabo Tesafalong Fan, Board Member, Commonwealth Sports Authority. Igal tingar mo sa Torngalu Chairman, Miami Member Committee, Wabo Fans Failure, Warbo Mats Falong Lan, Commonwealth Sports Authority. So that in the best interest of time, I came here to ask support and blessing from this committee for the reappointment of the 4 individuals I mentioned earlier, that they continue to serve in the Commonwealth Sports Authority. My name is Melvin Faisal, the Director of the Chamorro Carolinian Language Policy Commission. Sumasi Olamai Mekaliso.
This is Vasia, Mr. Prasad. Still open for public comment? Anyone? Family members of CPA, whether from Tinian, Roder or Saitan? Anyone? Once I close public comment, we will not go back to public comment, so this is the opportunity. Test.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee. My name is Ronnie James San Nicolas Daiskan, Board Manager for Port of Saipan. I'm here to fully 100% support the re-nomination of our board, Mr. Tevita, Mr. Diaz, Mr. Villagomez, and Mr. Barry. I believe with these people, they've been a great support in our dreams of completing our projects at the port. And I ask your expedition of reconfirming them to the Board of Commonwealth Port Authority. Thank you and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Daiskan. Still open for public comment? No one else? Before I recognize the members of the committee to raise question or concern, can I ask the clerk to, any, no written, zero? Okay, this time, since there's no written submitted either in support or non-support, I will recognize from the 3rd Senatorial District, Saipan, the Floor Leader of the Senate, Senator Vinny Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to all who are present here with us in this EAGI committee. Of course, to the nominees, the re-nominees, their families, also friends and the CPA leadership, and of course the wonderful staff of CPA. We welcome you to your Senate chamber. And in addition, I'd like to welcome all that are viewing on our media channels, YouTube, Facebook, and also cable. Good morning, Mr. Tevita, Mr. Diaz, Mr. Toves, and Mr. Villagomez. I want to thank you all for accepting the renomination from our governor and lieutenant governor to serve the CPA board. We know there's a lot of work that must continue. There's a lot of work that you all have done. And first, I'd like to, after looking at the websites and a couple of reports online, I'd like to applaud CPA for their work in bringing back the port operations right after the past natural disasters, as mentioned by former Senator Regis, and also what we all continue to face in the COVID-19 pandemic. But seeing the swift comeback of operations after those natural disasters, and I personally went and saw, what devastation that caused our ports. I want to applaud everybody on the CPA team for expeditiously bringing back those operations. As we know, if there's one department that or one section in our society and in our government that should come back after any disasters or setbacks, our ports are very significant as they receive passengers that enter into the Commonwealth, as well as materials needed through these seaports. So it's very, very vital that the work continues and the improvements continue in that aspect of our government. I did look at, and thank you, Member Tevita, for the Airport Facilities Committee report, and your written statement that you provided is very detailed. It answers a lot of the questions that I had. I do have just several questions in reference to the report. And one of those is the number 4 on your Airport Facilities Committee report, which is the pavement management program. I know there was just a brief detailed summary on that, but one of the questions or concerns that we've received, and I'd like to get some information on, is the paving of what I like to call the industrial drive or down at the seaport. Is that a CPA project, or if it is there any updates on that or timelines on the improvement? I know that during the initial hearings of your memberships into the CPA board, we did touch on that a bit, but maybe if you can kind of go back and maybe inform the committee on just a brief timeline on what has been going through with the pavement of the, I hope it's called Industrial Drive. I think it's a great name for that piece of road, but I just want to ask that question, as it's very important that we have that taken care of, and we can all do our parts in it. So any information on that? Any member?
Can we ask the chair from the board committee on that one? Like I said, they're hardworking committee chairs on that. So.
Chairman,
Dr.
we'll ask the chairman.
If you wish to call the members, no problem.
Mr. Chair, if you're asking on specifics, if finance or what have we, I'm sensing your question is that industrial drive? From what I understood, your question is that CPA responsibility? Basically, no.
So any type of discussions that have been going on the topic?
Thank you. I didn't mention earlier when I was testifying that I'm also the chairman for the Seaport operation. This issue on Industrial Road, as far back as 6 years ago, when I was even longer when I first got into the board, was confirmed by the Senate to be a member of the board. I've raised this issue up. Initially, the response, because we seek the assistance of the players in the area that uses the road for support, to assist us in funding this critical infrastructure that we need at the seaport. The response was that they were at one time made some contribution share of the need to fix the road, but they complained that nothing happened from that, and so many of them have asked, and rightly so, because this is the responsibility of the Commonwealth Ports Authority. And so, putting that aside, I start coordinating with some of the board members and our staff to find another solution to get this fixed. And as you very well know, the SNIO delegation, the second delegation, appropriated $600,000 for the road. We reviewed that, found that it wasn't sufficient amount to fix it, and so an additional, if I'm not mistaken, an additional $150,000 was subsequently appropriated. And during some of our negotiation with some of the lease companies that wanted to lease our property, the Seaport property, we negotiated some funding from them, and about $500,000 or $500,000 was uh, given to us by Second Stevedore. And so that adds up to over $1 million that is currently available. So I asked the staff to coordinate with Public Works because the appropriation of the SNIO delegation actually gave Public Works the expenditure authority. And today with the $500,000 from that I believe is CPA expenditure authority, we started meeting with the DPW staff, and it appears that the cost of fully addressing the industrial road would increase the rate of funding necessary to the amount where we actually do not have the money sufficient to address that. So they initially recommended that we do an RFP for design, and I respectfully requested if we do that, it will eat up into the amount that we already have ready to do the work. And we're going to find ourselves with an excellent design, but with no money to proceed with the project. So I recommended to the board that we proceed with just overlay of asphalt to fix the problem. The board, I am so humbled by the response of the board approving that request. And so we went back to the drawing board and we call Public Works again and we meet. And this time I submitted my proposal to them that we just do an overlay. The problem with that, members of the committee, is that there are requirements for funding basin and for overflow of water on the site drainage. And so, to make a long story short, I argued that the current situation still has that problem, and the use of that road is still in critical condition. So the paving of that road with the same problem existing is a better situation. It's a better picture. And so they agreed. Public Works agreed, and they went back to the drawing board. If my memory is correct, they recommended that there are some grants that are available to do the design and to possibly help out. Because initially, Public Works, though we insist from the research by our staff that the industrial road is actually part of the main highway that is eligible for highway funds. Public Works says it's not. And so at least I conceded to their expertise in that area. And so we need to move forward. And so currently the idea is that the conceptual idea is to have that fixed right now. And later, when we have the necessary fund, we can address the funding basin and any other requirement. But as things are developing in this project, different issues are coming up. One of them is that I was informed by the manager of the Port Authority operation that the Navy was interested in coming up to the CNMI to do some training. And so a representative of the Navy came up and requested to meet with CPA, Seaport manager. And that was arranged. And the meeting that transpired during that is I guess decision on whether or not they can help. And they requested what can they do? And so we, when that kind of opportunity comes, we have a huge wish list. But our manager had indicated that we need to fix the industrial road. It's a primary concern. And so they said maybe they can help us there. But as things started to develop again, other issue comes up. I met with with one of the Hawaiian Rock representative, and was informed that if we do a design build concept with them, that it will cost the CNMI lesser money than about half or even less than half of what we currently have. And so we started to go into that direction because we're not sure how long the Navy's proposal to help is going to take. So we were trying to fix the problem as quickly as we can. So I presented that proposal over to the members of the board of directors, and my feeling is that it was overwhelmingly supported. And so this is something that I've asked our port manager to relate to Public Works to see if we can, because we have no jurisdiction over the funds expenditure unless the Secretary of DPW approve it. But I feel that because this is a project involving the operation of the seaport, that CPA has a say in what we want to do with that road. And so we communicated that. I have not received back the result of that communication. But I also discussed this with our manager, the port manager, Mr. Rani Taiskan. And because of the offer from the Navy, it kind of wrap over to other projects that we see critical in CPA, such as the drainage for the aqueduct, the removal of those rocks so we can use the port, the wall, for parking of vessels, and many others. But your question is directly about the industrial road, and I hope that I've answered that as to your satisfaction.
Thank you, Director. Just yes, thank you for the answer, and it's great to know that there's ongoing discussions and also different angles of actually starting the project. And we do know that it could be a significant cost for waiting for designs and nice models and whatnot. And moving forward to maybe attach just the two, there's paved on both sides and make those improvements and make more improvements as we come. I think that's a great approach. We'll do our part. I'll do my part in the delegation to see how we can work with DPW to move in that direction as well. So thank you for that. And I'll go ahead and move forward, Mr. Chairman. I did briefly view the independent audit report, the latest one, and on section 1, it's very enlightening to know that there were no under federal awards and the internal control over major federal programs that there were no significant deficiencies. And I just want to point that out so that we can applaud the The staff, of course, is your accountant, Ms. Sky. As your name is stated here as the contact, so I want to applaud you for that. I know it's a very complex operation in trying to control and operate financials of especially a department like CPA, and we did see some findings, or I did recognize some findings under the general accountant practices, procurement practices, and also that of capital assets. But moving down into the report, and it's good that we see the corrective actions. I wanted to ask, because it was stated in the report that the proposed completion for the corrective actions would be the fiscal year 2021, and I wanted to see if or the board or CPA was on task with that date.
Can I be excused?
Yes, you can be excused. So just where we're at on those corrective actions, I know that the proposed date of completion was FY21, just to see if we're moving forward with that. But it's comforting to know that there have been some actions that have been taken and taking care of all those conditions. So just to kind of touch on that. Any member can answer that, or if any discussions were made in the board meetings on the independent audit report, the latest one.
If I may, I also sit as a member of the Airport Finance Committee. I don't recall yet having that item placed on the agenda for discussion, but if we do so, we will get back to the committee if that can work.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Toves. Yeah, I didn't finish the really viewing the report, but we'll continue to do so, and we can have an audience with you guys, CP. But go ahead, Director. Yes.
Yes, I don't want to find out whether the CP has been informed in terms of that issue.
The who?
Informed pertaining to that issue, or just the overall accomplishment, whether we have met our 2021 goals and objectives.
Yeah, well, the report, the latest report, the independent audit report, there were some findings. There were also some successes. The committee or I just wanted to know if we were on task with the corrective actions that stated in the report that we were looking at fiscal year 2021, that these corrective actions would be complete. So I know there's actions going forward. Corrective actions are being done right now according to the report. I wanted to know if they were done or are they continuing. That was the question.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Sablan, yes. Like all reports or audit reports and any other compliance that is required of us, so CPA, it is ongoing at this point. Tomorrow, Director Torres had mentioned, we also have a special meeting, extraordinary meeting for those and the bonds that we are looking at for updates, and one of the agenda will be based on that. Since you bring it up.
Thank you, Director Sablan. And as we go along, and then, like I said, it's great that there are some actions being taken, but we can. I chair the PUTC committee, and we can have other meetings about that. But Mr. Chairman, I yield for now. We give time to other members. If they'd like to come back for seconds, then I would request that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Floor Leader. Recognize Senator Neighbors from the 2nd Senatorial District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And first of all, good morning to everybody here today. Thank you all for making the time to be here, especially to the members of the board who were accepting the renomination, and to Governor Torres and Senate Governor Palacios. I appreciate their renomination of these members. I don't have a question. I just have a couple of comments that I wanted to raise today. Firstly, these past 2 to 3 years have been extremely difficult for the CNMI. I do understand it's been exceedingly difficult on CPA directly. I'd like to commend you guys and your board member, your management, for keeping everybody on board with respect to their employment and navigating the financial instability brought on by Super Typhoon Mewtwo and the pandemic, the border closure, the ports closures, and really responding in a way, keeping all your staff 100% intact. I do know that you guys had furloughed hours, but those have been restored. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And secondly, with regards to number 3 on Chairman Tevitet's testimony this morning regarding the self-care leave, I'd like to commend all of you for the implementation, offering this as an option for your staff. I think this is a very progressive approach to recognize that everybody needs a little time for self-care and mental health. That's very exciting for me, and I hope that other agencies would consider following suit with regards to this. And lastly, in my brief time here in the Senate, I've always known the CPA board and the management to be always prompt in regards to any requests, inquiries. I know last 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting on Tinin with the Tinin legislative delegation that I thought was very fruitful. It was very open and honest discussions with regards to some of the issues and projects that are going on now on Tinin. And I do know that this has been afforded also to the islands of Saipan and Rota. So to that end, much thanks for your openness and honesty. Every question was responded to with, and you could tell that there was, it came from a place of knowledge. So with that being said, I'd like to again thank you guys for accepting the renomination, and lastly for putting up with the chairperson, King Hines. I know sometimes she can be difficult, but that being said, Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time.
Thank you, Senator Rivers. Now I'd like to recognize the Vice President of the Senate, Senator Augusto Tilibua from the 3rd Senate Honorable District, Saipan.
This is Mr. Chairman. And good morning to the nominees. And it's been a pleasure to meet all of you again. And to see that there are progress with the CPA, both the airport and the seaport. We have only 2 entries and exits. It's the airport and the seaport. And anything that happens, either we go to the airport or we go to the seaport to exit. And I have a few questions. I usually ask questions when you're coming back for your second round, and I appreciate the handouts that board member Mr. Tevete submitted to us. But first, I would like to go back to and follow up on Senator Sablan's questions on the financial audit. This is the audit that was issued on March 15, 2021. And this audit is particularly focused on the passenger facility charges collected and expended. And there are recommendations here, and your controller have responded to the findings. And that's where Senator Sablan was alluding that because it is in the response to the audit that the proposed completion will be fiscal year 2021. So fiscal year is closing this week, so maybe that's why he's trying to find out whether this has been satisfied with the public auditor based on the audit. So I will leave that and probably your controller might have probably be bringing that to the board meeting to inform the board members as to the satisfaction response to the auditor's report. So I will leave that there, and this is a very important audit, and I've read through it, and it has to deal with your collections and the projects that we funded under this. By the way, this is 2019. The audit report comes like 2 years late. So this is on your collections on the passenger charges and the activities that you fund under this collections, and also the limitations that you can do in terms of getting approval from FAA on the expenditures of the collections. Because I was reading the public auditor's report, and it says that if you collect too much and you spend everything, you have to request for an amendment to FAA. And I guess you're allowed to collect for the purpose of airport expenses, and if you over collect it, then something probably is different with that. And also the requirements from FAA and in collecting the passenger facility charges, which should be done quarterly with the airlines. And I will leave that thing your controller is best to answer that. Why not all the airlines are responding on time in terms of the collections to CPA. So I'll leave that to your controller to explain when you guys are discussing the latest CPA audit. I'd like to move on to maybe a follow-up question with that Senator Sablan asked about the appropriation by the delegation. Yes, that appropriation is recent, and I think that perhaps if the delegation Chairman Sablan is the chairman of our delegation, if the delegation again intends to appropriate funds to autonomous agencies, for example, like the roads that was intended to be fixed for so many years now, to avoid all this running back and forth on the expenditure funds, could be just appropriated to CPA as the expenditure authority. And that $600,000 that might go down because we have a local law that when we appropriate local funds to public works will take out a certain percentage of the over appropriation. for administrative costs. So I guess next time when we do that, we will just appropriate directly to a CPA, for example, so that you get the whole amount, rather than what we were saying. We have already deducted our administrative costs, you get the rest. Unless the chairman will want to amend the appropriation law, I'd say, again, since you're having difficulties with public works, we'll give you the expenditure authority of that appropriation. Okay, but I'll leave that up to the chairman. I'm really happy to see on the report that Mr. Tepotep has provided us, because there are people that frequent the small terminal now that we have temporarily. I look at it's number 10, and it's going to be, it's in the process of demolishing and constructing, and I always thought that it's a temporary permanent building. You know, Italian locals when it's a temporary one, not permanent. So now I see that it's not going to be permanent. It's going to be, and I'm happy that this project is being undertaken, and because if there is rain, there's a slope there that goes to the temporary facility, the domestic. Pura yung patchy zone. You can see the water running from the pavement into the facility. So I'm glad that this is going to be undertaken and be completed probably soon. And what about the jetways? The jetways of the airport. Which section here is that is Mr. Tepotep listed are the jetways? I'm looking for it, and I'm looking at maybe it's a different term. I say jetways, probably
Number 12.
number 12. Okay, the loading bridge. I was wondering what's a loading bridge, because when I was reading the description, it says bridges 1, 4, and 5, and I think, do we only have 5 bridges there? 6? I thought all of them were broken by the typhoon.
That is correct, Senator. We just purchased 3 that I believe all 3, the first 3 that came in have already been completely installed. One of them is actively being used by United Airlines now. So the report, item number 12, is reporting on the remaining 3 bridges, bridge number 1, 4, and 5.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. And but according to the report, it says here that the funding will not be available until February 2022. Is there additional additional bridges that will be funded at a later date under FAA on February 2022?
It's basically at this point with those remaining bridges, it's going through the similar process that has transpired with the 3 that's already completed. So it's a matter of the required, for example, the A&E design. So that's what it's going through at this point with those 3 remaining ones.
There's a project here that says underfunded, and I was just wondering if this project, if CPA has insurance to the facilities, and the underfunded project be covered by the insurance company. Here on number 3, the safety management system program, it says here that it is funded by CPA, however, it is insufficient for the total cost of the services. So, however, the report indicated that you will be discussing this during the board meeting for supplemental funding. So,
If I may add on to that, Senator, if the FAA funding award is not sufficient for a particular project, then we tap into our revenue funding sources in order for us to complete the funding. Because if we are going to submit another round of application, the process takes too long, and therefore the extension of dates for availability of funding for us to secure for that particular project. For the first 3 loading bridges were in the process before the total destruction, before the disasters happened. We have been working on upgrading, rehabilitating, and replacing those by phases, because we didn't have enough allotted funding through the AIP sources at that time, so we had to break it down into phases. So while we were working on those phases, when the disaster actually happened, and yes, of course, some of the insurance refunds are going to be diverted to achieve this. Certain of the loading bridges are identified by full damages that are covered by the insurance.
And what about FEMA? Are you getting any funds from FEMA? Or it's channeled through FAA?
I do remember asking that question in one of our financial affairs committee meeting, and our controller explained to us that the way FEMA works with this public assistance program is our sources come in first before FEMA money is available to us. So in essence, CPA has insurance policies in place. So whatever the difference, whatever, it's very minute by the end of the day. It's a minute amount of money that the board has the prerogatives to divert to other priority areas. Yeah, so we don't get 100% assistance from FEMA because of the fact that we have insurance coverage.
Yeah, I understand that, but at least if you explore the possibility of getting FEMA is really happy with CPA because you have insurance, so they don't have to pay much for insurance to cover it. On number 1, I'm going to go back to number 1 on the report that is submitted by Mr. Tebete. I'm really glad that the master plan is proceeding. And I remember this when I first came to the Senate, I 76-2, was the chairman of the UTC. And every time CPA comes here, he will ask them where's the master plan. And if I see him, I will tell him that the master plan is in progress and will be completed soon. So I'm really happy that finally CPA will be having a master plan for not only for today, but for the future. I want to go back to the road. I think it was just yesterday or this week when we were discussing about votes, and there was a comment that the reason why Road Union is not getting much help because they have only 1 representative each, and there are minorities in the board. And and I'm looking at this, this listing here that Mr. Tobis, even though you're a minority, but your friends in Saipan, in the board and Tinian, is providing the needed assistance or priorities to the Operating Road as well as Tinian. And this is a very classic example that it depends on who sits in the board that represents Roda or Tinian. And I was going to ask you that question, but when I saw the listing, I said to myself, I think you're doing your job. Because I was going to ask you, you know, are you fighting not only for the CNMI, CPA, but also for the priority bids of the senatorial that you're representing? But it's already answered because it's here. So now I have a question. What's the status of the runway? I heard that you know the runway was contracted out and was I don't know whether it was finished or under litigation. Can you update on that?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest work stuck in my behind since I started on the board, Senator, that we've been struggling since back in 2014 to address this issue, but we keep going back and forth with litigation. So with all due respect to the chairman and the committee members, I'm not at liberty to discuss details about the current status of the case because it's still under litigation. But I just wanted to assure the committee and the Commonwealth that the CPA Board of Directors are aggressively looking for ways for us to address the runway. We are concerned, the board is heavily concerned that FAA's annual certification of the runway is showing that what we on our side are saying that we received a product that is not acceptable to us. That's hence the reason why we're under litigation is the fact that we are required to recertify our runways in certain periods of time. And the runway is supposed to serve the Commonwealth for a lifespan of 20 years. And our knowledge and based on the things that we have discussed and found out in our discovery is that we're not going to settle. That's the board stance. We need to go after the litigation and recover as much, but at the same time, not lose track that we need to address the runway, because if that runway closes down, you know what happens. If the pandemic is once a very, very particular example of our tourism industry, which is our basis of our economy. And the board is privy to those information that we have been getting from our legal counsel. But as far as us disclosing these details, I cannot do that at this point in time. But one thing I will tell you is that the board is focused. We have tried to go through different sources to secure funding, and I'm sure that our colleague, Chairman Tabitha, can explain to the committee the different types of sources that we tried to obtain additional funding for us to do the resurfacing that is required. The condition right now is okay, but what our greatest concern is the lifespan that we are promised at the closing of the project is not what we're going to receive. So the focus is to resurface it so that we can achieve a better runway, safer. And at this point in time, I feel comfortable that it's still safe. Like I said, the concern is the lifespan for expectancy for it to live up to the funding that we expended.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tobis. I just want information on the updates, and thank you for that. What about the issues? I know that it's under litigation or will be litigated in the future. The issues on the PFC with Star Marianas. You don't have to give me details, but is it under litigation or?
It is, yeah,
Okay.
and we still stand firm with CPA that we have been cleared by DOT, we have been cleared by FAA in establishing, administering, and managing our PFC programs. And the board is cognizant that there is like you said, every 2 years an audit report comes out. So when we receive those reports, what we do is comply. If we receive excessive, we have records to prove that we administer back reimbursements to these airlines that have expended excess.
Yes, I read the report that you guys have been seeking the approvals, CPA,
Right.
and you've been submitting amendments,
Right.
amendments to the charts. The other question that I have is, I read in the paper that you will be changing the lease structure of the CPA or Seaport on vendors. Is that already final?
The rate methodology, we started our project on that because at the request of the same airline that is taking our support, did not agree with the structure of our airport user agreement and did not agree with us with our definition and interpretation of the rules and regs with regards to PFC and how it's supposed to be administered. So with my committee encouragement with the board, we pursued a different idea and I tried to apply a practice that is standard to most of our U.S. jurisdiction airlines. Even one is doing the same thing. So the new methodology, we hired Riponda and Associates, and in fact, we did invite them over to the legislature and the governor to present the model of the rate methodology. The board has approved the rate methodology and it's supposed to be effective on October 1st. We're supposed to start implementing it. But because we gave waivers, incentives to the airlines all the way up to December, it doesn't make sense for us to implement the new rate methodology on October 1st when we're not going to collect anything for 100% discount. So we decided to make it effective on January, I believe January 1st, in 2022. So that's the new rate methodology that we adopted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tobis.
The difference, Mr. Senator, if I may just add one last, the difference between the AUA and the new rate methodology is that the former, yes, we are charging based on passengers, number of passengers planing and deplaning. But the new rate methodology is based on the footprint of the operation. So in this case, if we continue with the AUA, there's no airlines coming in, there's no collection of revenue. That's the current structure that we were operating. The new rate methodology allows us to collect revenues based on the impact of the flow of traffic and the utilization of the facilities that we provide.
Okay, thank you. On the, I remember the years back, I think Mr. Deputy also remember this really well, when Bank of Guam came to the House chamber to meet with us, because they are going to take over the management of CPA. What's the status of the bond, the indenture agreement, the bond? Is CPA keeping up with the reserve that is required in the bond with the pandemic and the typhoon and the shortfall of revenue collections? So CPA is good with.
I remember that specifically, Mr. Senator, because we were, I think the governor at that time dissolved the board and we installed back the board, and Kizo and I served on that first board. And they appointed me chairman of the Financial Affairs Committee, and I was the red bull target. The committee was so pissed with me when we had to go back and readjust the tariffs. And we listened to two rate consultation reports. The first one, we did not agree. The second one, we went back and adopted it. So therefore, that's the first and only time that CPA ever raised its tariffs. Contrary to what the media is saying, that we'll keep on tinkling with adjusting our rates. We never did until that time moving forward because of the ban. And in doing so, we also communicated with FAA with regards to PFC, and we're able now to account for PFC and identify it as part of our revenues. That assisted us in giving us the numbers necessary to be in compliance with the bond rating 1.25 and above. So that was really a genius thing that happened with our former teams and accounting, the controllers at the time. And without the PFC, our rate is going to be bleak. But currently, we still maintain. And I want to thank the controller, Ms. Sky, and Mr. Chairman Tevete for keeping us up to par with this, despite the current pandemic that we're suffering now.
Thank you, Mr. Tovis. It's good to hear that even with the typhoons and super typhoons and pandemics, CPA is putting the bond on the forefront when it comes to prioritizing your revenues. I would like to touch briefly on Public Law 1962. The purpose of this is to provide some assistance to the people of Rhoda and Tinian. So that when they bring commodities to Rhoda and Tinian, the warfare charges at least will not be charged, so that the additional burden, financial burden that they're going to be added on to them will not be as painful as in the past. However, since CPA is implementing it, perhaps CPA can observe this and let us know what's the impact. Is it making a difference in terms of trying to assist the people who know that, or it is more creating a greater negative impact with CPA in terms of revenues? Let us know, because you're the ones that are implementing this. It doesn't have to be today, but probably with all the activities and reports that you have been collecting and the funds that you have been losing as a result of this. Let us know. But this public law. And it is it's quite interesting to read on your report that there are also birds found at the airport, where such an important project to be undertaken, and it kind of put a temporary hold on your project, which is the upgrading of the water system. Any upgrades on the timeline of resolving the wildlife issue of the birds with the CPA? Are you paying additional to relocate these birds somewhere? What's the status of the
To be frank, Senator, I don't have the updated details as of this point in time, but I'm pretty sure that if we meet tomorrow, I can ask the post manager and the deputy director. Because we do have our teams working closely with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife when it comes to hazard mitigation in the runway system. Uh, I apologize, I don't have the details at this moment.
Okay, thank you anyway, Mr. Tobis. And I know the chairman of BTC is keeping track of this, and perhaps when it goes in for committee meeting, you'll provide us with an update of all the projects that the CPA is undertaking, and at least for the public information. The public are really interested to see the activities that CPA is undertaking to either repair or upgrade the facilities at both CPA and at the airport and seaport as a result of the super typhoon U2. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I end my questions and comments for today.
Thank you, Vice President. And good morning again, Repuntis. I know, Mr. Tobis, that you have read your statement this morning regarding the public law 19-62. And according to your statement, that the legislative intent it's not clear whether we realize that the intent of this is only one time and to be charged because it's already in the law that anything that comes with to the main port, either from to Roda to Tinian and Saipan from outside the Commonwealth should be charged. But we're putting burden on the consumers additional. In regards to commodities that are stored, it is not our job to check on business to make sure that those embedded in markets that are still remaining in their commodities should be, considered not putting it there. We extend this, we address this to the commerce, and we're very disappointed. And I hope the commerce are hearing this. We're very disappointed. We address this to look into the businesses and see how they can, resolve this, because there's no markets anymore imposed to any businesses that sending commodities or even individuals sending commodities to the island of Tinian, Roda, and vice back, or even people sending here to Saipan. We address them to look into this and assist the members of the general public. They haven't done that. We address this again to the new secretary that we confirmed, because it is their responsibility to make sure that the businesses are fair to the consumer, and they haven't done that. So it is not the problem of the public law 1962. The 1962 is to alleviate the hardship, the difficulties that are the majority of the members of the general public are burdened on these commodities. And even if we repeal this and CPS start imposing it, I don't believe any business will not impose an additional whatever workplace that the CPS is going to impose. They will not forget about that. They will impose an additional to embed, to put in their laws. So on top of what they have now, there will be an additional. So I want that to be understood here. We're not here to argue over this, but I ask that this water should not be, be removed. There will be additional charges. If you post today, there will be additional charges for the business to recover the loss. even if that work is still there, in the beginning, they will put another, whatever percentage CPI will impose, they will put into their commodities, and the general public will be burdened to that. As you mentioned, Chairman, on your statement, that it's inclusive, even with or without. That's why Commerce's duty is to go and check on businesses. That's the responsibility, to make sure the businesses are fair to the consumer. That's their duty. And if we were to continue to do those, then they might come back and say, well, no, we're micromanaging. We addressed it to them. They haven't done that. So like I said, if this should, is this going to be imposed on another, if we repeal this and CPI will post the inter-island work rates, people will suffer more on top of what we have now. Especially, we all understand that the commodities on the island of Tinian and Rota is very high. And especially, you mentioned on because of COVID-19, they consider giving, I understand incentive program is to continue to service the island regards to carrier. And you even mentioned 50% to 100% relief. What about the main source of our revenue is the general public, the main source of everyone, to the businesses, and we must not forget that. And putting that to them another additional, I totally disagree. I guess that we should, work on something, find something else besides considering putting this back, and posting it to the consumer. If that's, I don't know if all of you disagree with what fits the public law 19-62. This is basically to assist the suffering, the difficulties, especially nowadays, the pandemic. We're just fortunate that federal government is assisting us with stimulus and all kinds of revenue, but our revenue is not stable. We don't have revenue, the main source of revenue, the tourism industry. And if this assistance is not going to be, the U.S. government is not going to assist us in the coming years, then everyone should understand that we're going to bound to austerity measure, no matter what. And like I mentioned, I hope that this is not on the table of CPI to consider reaching out to impose on markets. We're already imposing markets by law, coming in outside the Commonwealth. We're already, charging taxes. People are paying taxes. Businesses are they're putting the price. I know that this is a problem here in the Commonwealth. We don't have any price control. But Commerce is responsible to make sure that their fair businesses are fair to the consumer. All I ask is, please do not intend to bring this back. Because our work here in the Senate is to find ways to alleviate the hardship of our people. I understand CPI family that we need revenue to support the employees, but we must consider the main source of the revenue where it's coming from, and we must not burden them. Already, supporting businesses. People of Tinian and already come over here because the prices are low. We're trying to make sure that they can support their family, trying to make sure that they can buy more, because our island is too high. And if we keep looking at markets, that's another big move. And I don't know how much percentage that you are posting or intend to post versus how much the lease per square meter on all individuals or companies that are leasing CPA property. And if you compare those, is it fair? The price of Warfits for Thailand versus the price of how much you guys are leasing to businesses on all CPA. And if this is public information about raising from 50 to 100% of relief, how would our people think about imposing Warfits? These people that you're giving relief, they're making money for their business. The members of the general public, they're not business community. Some of them are paycheck to paycheck, and we have to consider that. So I want to ask, are you guys supporting to request or lobby to repeal this?
Mr. Chairman, on the issue of the Warfits, the inter-island Warfits, I think that's going to be moved. The only reason that it was raised is because, there was another concern on trying to remove our fees. On the inter-island Warfits, it was by statute that we moved it. We cannot, go back and implement any Warfits. CPA is not legally entitled to implement any inter-island Warfits because it's against. The only reason why the board did not remove it is because we had a fiduciary responsibility to protect the bond indentured debt. We don't want to jeopardize it. But when it was removed, it did not, the bond indenture was not questioned because we're not the one who removed the fee.
I understand that. No.
So that your intent with the legislation, it's no on that one. And if we could have done it, we would have, just repealed it ourselves. But because of the bond indentures, we were obligated to defend it.
I wanna.
So I don't believe it's, the board, will ever intend on implementing it again.
Before this Public Law 1962 was passed, I look at the CPA book and requested. CPA is collecting $6.some million at that time, and the bond obligation is $4.some million only. It cannot jeopardize the bond. And plus, I mentioned that this Warfits jeopardize some repair of the dock, the seaport and airport. At that time, I asked a report from CPA. Tinian is making over $600 more than what they're spending at our seaport. And there's no, from the time you can look back, from the time before this passed, there's nothing that has been repaired at our seaport and airport by CPA. It is the Tinian delegation that providing funding from CIP, from OIA. We're providing funding for some retroactive at the airport and the seaport. So I look at it that what is collected on Tinian is not even pumping into what needs to be repaired, and the people are suffering. That's the reason why, one of that reason why I requested from our members to remove that inter-island Warfits. But it's not. I will not introduce legislation that will jeopardize the bond agreement. CPA is collecting over $6+ million. And I believe it's only $4.some million that it's required to pay the bond.
What I'm trying to point out is that we had an obligation to pay a fee. And that fee can either be at a minimum amount in there, but it's part of the obligation to, to receive that and pay over to the fund. Nothing else. If we're gonna, repeal that and forgive, those collections, we might have problem with the bond. I'm not saying that, you guys are not paying, or it's our obligation to, to defend what's being collected.
I understand. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Should respond to your question if there's any movement within CPA with respect to 1962, whether to appeal or repeal it. The short answer is no. The intent of my presentation on this specific law is to show in part the financial part of the seaport itself. On the bonds, there's bonds for seaport and bonds for airports, so it's treated a little bit separately. We're going to also indicate on the passenger and the relief program that's on the airport side. On the seaport, it's a little bit different. What I'm suggesting is basically that the public law on its final intent is not conclusive. The intent of the public law is noble, and you will recall that at that time I also supported during that introduction that you did. I supported the intent because it was noble, and the intent was really so that it is not double charged. The fees are not double charged for Tinian and Rhoda. It's already charged in Saipan. But the intent of the law is not to double charge again for those commodities, which also includes petroleum. So the short answer is no.
Thank you. But to be honest with you, it's an insult when it's put out on a newspaper and it's not working. It is not our job to make it work. It is farmers' job to make it work. So I want everyone to understand that it works. It's helping the community. But when it comes to businesses that are not removing the workers and their commodities, it is farmers' job to look into that. We address it. And if CP is concerned about the commodities, I hope that you help out to address the commerce and see what they can do. Instead of putting my view on the newspaper that it's not working. It's working for our community. But it's not working when it comes to businesses that are selling commodities. And I ask that we must work together, to alleviate the suffering, especially this difficult, the time that we have now. I know that business keep rising, and I hope that the aegis officer will look into that, whether those are in violation of the law. That because of the pandemic, they keep rising. I hope they look into that. Because at the end of the day, to be honest, we all the legislators the blame. But we cannot just do every single thing that is not within our, authority. But like at the end of the day, we are the full. We have the authority on any single thing. We have the responsibility to address concern of our general public. That's why we're here to help them. The warfares that I introduced, it's coming from the general public that they look into some research on those expenses, and they see that, and they blame us for not repairing the airport and the seaport. So we look for ways. We use our CFP to do some retrofitting at the airport and also at the dock. It's not coming from, to be honest with you, can look back. There's no CPF funding that goes from before we even pass this work. So it's not just because I want to impose, to remove the mortgage. I am addressing the concern of our people that are complaining to us. So I hope you guys understand that. We're here to help. So, and regarding, I know it's an incentive program, but this will not leave. They will continue because they need to make money. And I know this is up to December, but this is 50% to 100% minimum wage, right? This is another additional, you're concerned of the collection of workers, but this is another additional burden on CPA's revenue. How would this address what was just mentioned this morning about, about the employees, their family, blah, and so forth? If this, how much impact will this burden the CPA revenue? Will this maintain up to December or
If you're referring to my statement on the 50 to 100%, that's specific for only the aviation fees.
I understand, but would that certain representative will not hamper the operation or even the work for the employee, the salary and stuff like that? Are you guys on 80 hours now, or I'm hearing that you guys cut hours at CPF?
Now we're on the 80.
Part of the creativity for our hardworking staff was also that we were able to receive assistance from the Federal Aviation Administration at 22 million, which also authorizes us to use for our staffs.
Okay, thank you. So regarding that, I know it's not coming from you guys, but coming from your financial officer that disclosed on the paper that requesting to remove from the book, totally remove. Some of them are on a longer business. I see that a lot of revenue there to collect, but very difficult to collect. It was either file bankruptcy or whatever. Some of them can be collected, or you're just gonna remove from the CPF book and not recover from any of them. Those that owe CPF.
Yes, it's a big chunk, but those are uncollectible. And, we took a look at it, and, some of those companies are bankrupt, gone from the island, and so uncollectible, you gotta write it off. And, yeah.
So there's no way that we can, I know that bankruptcy we cannot do anything, but those that just left the island are not.
That's the recommendation of the audit report. One of the audit report.
Okay, any members wish to recognize the Vice President?
This is Mr. Chairman. There's one here that I overlook on the early part of February 2021. The executive director of CPA wrote me a letter, if I can write a letter of support to the US DOT relative to CPA's application for the Guam CNMI application of the Mariana Islands Highway route and project destination. You know if there's any update on this application from CPA to US DOT?
Normally, I would give the honor to, with respect to my colleague, the good chairman of Seaport Committee, to explain that to the body, but since he's not up for nomination, I'll give it a shot. Yes, I believe with, and I want to recognize and thank the management and staff, the deputy director and the three managers and the controller for putting this application together and seeking assistance also from the committee support. We did discuss this during our last board meeting, and we congratulated the management for successfully getting the route approved by DOT. So now CPA stands ready to avail and be qualified or eligible to receive Maratno grant funding to address the seaport projects.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas, and that's really good news because this approval of designation, you're right, you will have more access to federal funds, so you know CPA can improve the seaport facilities and whatnot that is required for bigger ships to come to the CNMI. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Mosi.
Thank you, Vice President. Any other members? One. At this time, all public comments are well taken. Let the record reflect that there's no written or written testimonies from individual in support or not in support of the appointees. And all oral testimonies presented today will be included in the Senate Standing Committee recommendation report and will be forwarded before the full Senate members in consideration for confirmation or rejection. At this time, before we adjourn, I would like to extend on behalf of the members of this committee our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Governor Torres and Lieutenant Governor Palacios, the appointees, Mr. Tomas P. Villagomez, Mr. Joseph M. Diaz, Mr. Ramon A. Tubutep, and Mr. Barry C. Tobis, and most especially the members of the general public for your participation and involvement during this important public hearing process. And we certainly hope that we continue this dialogue of communication between us, the elected officials, and the public to keep you abreast and informed of our current and future Senate hearings ahead that relates to the public best interest. This concludes this public hearing for today. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a motion to adjourn today's public hearing, subject to the call of the chair. So moved.
There's a motion for adjournment and was seconded. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. This public hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.